I think Senegal is like the hottest place on earth. I stand to be corrected. But yeah, deep learning double live from Senegal. Welcome to iAfrikan.com. As you can see, we're outside. We're at the library. We're at the Amadou. I'm trying to get this name right. It's the Amadou Makta Mbao University.
I think so, but I'm the last person you should ask. I don't speak any local.
So at the deep learning double, there's 3 venues, essentially, right? We're at the library. You have the main hall, and then you have the annexure building. The annexure building is where the workshops and the practicals are happening. The main conference venue is the main speakers, and then you have sort of the library, which is sort of like a holding room for the booths, for all the sponsors, and all the companies that are associated, and basically a community space for everybody.
Coffee area.
Yes, coffee area and all those lovely things. But now we are sitting with a friend of the podcast, definitely. Last time we spoke, it was in Ghana, and I think you were just named Time Magazine's top 100 people in AI.
Yeah.
Let's recap. How did that feel? And since then, last year, how has it shifted anything significant professionally, socially, or otherwise?
That it's difficult to say if it has shifted anything meaningfully. It definitely has brought in a much wider global recognition. I think I am now asked to give keynote speeches, to present at conferences, at various events, at a much more higher rate than before. Those are some of the things you see that has influenced.
So Abeba is a straight talker, and she always talks about biasness and decolonizing. That voice within the AI space, how important is it, and why have you sort of profiled yourself as that person?
I don't think of it as me profiling myself as that person, but I see it as I see it as rather something that has to be done, and perhaps maybe not enough people are doing it. For example, this morning we were presenting awards.
Yes.
This year we have a new award in recognition of Cheikh Anta Diop.
Yes.
He was a Senegalese intellectual.
Yes.
He was a multidisciplinary scholar. He was a chemist, a physicist, a mathematician, an anthropologist, a historian, a politician. His work was so significant. It challenged, Western narratives about hierarchies of races.
Yes.
He produced, the first set of empirical evidence that showed that the origin of humankind is actually in Africa, in Egypt. But because this contradicts with Western narrative, his work has been kind of systematically buried. So for me, kind of acknowledging, intellectuals like that and uplifting and making sure that they are household names is important because we have to know our roots, and we have to know, the intellectual contribution that our, forefathers and foremothers have made, so that we can stand in proudly and be comfortable with our blackness. So for me, contributions like these are just as important as, any, very tightly controlled experiments or I see this as part of the whole package. It's not just about an academic excellence. It's also doing work that is impactful, that will change people's mind about how they think about their identity, about their history, and so on. So this academic excellence and being aware of who you are has to go hand in hand.
Abeba, there's a lot of fast-moving things happening in AI machine learning. As you're going around the world, giving these talks and practically, being involved in the research around AI, the issue of biasness, fairness, ethics, how ahead or how behind are we
Yeah.
within the global body of within the global body of knowledge, but also I think within within Africa, are we even considering those type of things, or
Yeah.
are we just trying to catch up with everybody?
Yeah, so across the entire African continent, there are so many narratives based on misconceptions about what AI is. You hear so much about like we are being left from the AI race and so on, without so much thinking about what exactly the AI race is and what it means to be on the AI bandwagon. So we assume that all AI is good, all AI is beneficial. That means we have to jump on it so we are not left behind. But in reality, not all AI is unequivocally good. So jumping on the AI bandwagon actually might do more damage, more harm than bring about any benefits. And now with the generative AI being the trend, from researchers to policymakers to the general public, really want to to be part of the conversation. But however, despite so much narrative focusing around how AI carries potentials to transform societies, how AI is promising in various domains from agriculture to education to the medical space, a lot of that narrative is just based on promises and empty potentials. It's not based on any actual empirical evidence. In fact, when you look at a lot of the models that are released in these domains, from medicine to education to the legal space, because a lot of my work revolves around audits and evaluation of how these models perform in reality, you find that these models in particular and AI in general has become a tool that widens inequality because the current systems we are building are encoding and exacerbating historical biases and really problematic narratives and representations of African people and Black people in general. So when we are embracing models, embracing the AI industry, we are doing it without so much critical thinking about how these models are actually a tool that are widening inequality and making the world, and Africa in particular, a worse place.
Now, Abeba, for graduates that are looking at this, right, that are in AI, machine learning, that are doing the, let's say, the postgraduate, masters, PhDs, that are even aspiring,
Yeah.
let's say grade 12s, matrics, that are, wanting to go into university, and they feel the same way that you do. They feel as passionate as the way you do. How do they get involved? What is the, I'm an AI student. Where do I become involved in this, trying to sort of turn the tide against biasness? Where do I go?
Yeah, so there are various avenues to get involved if you are within the research space. The most obvious route is to do research, starting with acknowledging the limitations and the drawbacks of these models, and working on various methods to improve them or to guide the general field in the right direction. I mean, AI does hold the potential for the betterment of society, but because it's driven by capitalist needs, look at all the AI companies that are at the top of the hierarchy. It's DeepMind, Google, Meta, OpenAI, and so on. They are not building models and putting it out there for the betterment of society. They are on a neck to neck race to make the highest revenue, to make the most money. So we can challenge that narrative and build models that actually go against this capitalist motive. So that's one way to get involved. The other is, as I said earlier, though there is so much misconception and wrong narrative about AI that portrays it as something magic that can solve any problem, that is infallible. So one is like raising awareness about the actual, reality of AI, what it is. It's not magic. It's not infallible. All systems, they face various kinds of failures and issues. They are not godlike. So even raising awareness about what AI is another venue. Young people can get involved in educating the general public around these issues. Another way is there is so much discussion and happening, also so much actual action happening within the policy and regulation space. That is another venue to intervene for the young people of Africa to shape regulation in the direction that actually benefits us and protects our interests. Because currently, again, even the regulatory space there is so much corporate capture of AI regulation. So they are, in a way, systematically derailing the regulatory space in a way that aligns with big corporate agenda. So these are the different ways, young people get involved.
But Abeba, I put it to you, right, that this is now in regards to AI and business. AI is an expensive exercise.
Yes.
The resources, the computational power, the energy aspect, the skills that are needed.
Yeah.
How do companies or organizations or governments, how do they incentivize people to keep developing this technology when there's no money to be made from it? Because it's easy to say that, okay, no, let's not just push the money aspect, let's look at fairness, but there needs to be a commercialization aspect of it. How do we achieve that and not just be in a situation where the world's a perfect place and we all agree everything is fair? Of course, there will be, aspects of, competition, naturally so, because there's more than one company trying to pursue this technology and ultimately be supreme. So how do we incentivize the race and keep it fair at the same time? I know I said a whole lot.
No, that's a very good question. So why do we need to be in the race, first of all? I mean, we can't have perfectly good AI that is, developed by local communities to solve the actual problems that they are facing, not problems that some Western AI company thinks that African communities are facing. And there are plenty of examples. Look at in Mali, for example, in Bamako, you have a group called Kabako Academics. They are working around what they call indigenous tech. It's a mixture of high tech and indigenous knowledge. And you don't need to kind of build technologies like they're doing. That is actually making the community better. You don't need huge compute power. You don't need massive data sets with billions and trillions of tokens. You don't need massive energy resources. So in order to think that we have to be on the AI race, we are basing this based on a misunderstanding that we have to build massive models known as, general purpose models that are, most of generative systems that don't have any very specific purposes. All these generative systems, or even large complex systems that companies like Facebook, Google DeepMind, OpenAI are building, they're just like tools floating around looking for a purpose. We don't need to do that. And they are costly in terms of, in compute, energy, talent, and so on. We don't need to do that to actually build AI. That's actually beneficial. And in order to balance, the financial incentives versus AI, that is actually good. As I said, one of them is like to build small models. Small models are much better, but also, you have to have. There has to be some balance between doing some good especially if we are going to integrate AI systems into critical spaces such as education. The entire young people's, the next generation's, capacity, knowledge depends on how good education they receive. So deploying these systems into critical systems like education, medicine, law enforcement, we can't have models that are built entirely on the purpose of profit maximizing, because these fields, such as education, are not there to make money. The purpose of education is not to maximize profit. It's to, cultivate the next young, brilliant minds that are, community minded, that are critical thinkers. So we have to find a good balance between, adhering to these, community values that don't necessarily give you a monetary return on the one hand, but on the other hand, bringing in AI systems to aid in these spaces. So it's easy to achieve that balance because other groups have done it. Like, as I said, Bamako in Kabako Academies.
Abebe, because there's a lot of people watching this, right? And I have to ask you this. Some people might say you're too superficial. And I think I'm not the first person to say that. Or rather, because there's different types of people that are going to be watching this.
Yeah.
Somebody might be sitting at home and say, but Babe is too superficial. Like, this thing needs to be funded and we need to make money and we need to... Look at, for example, the space race, right?
Yeah.
With Blue Origin, which is Amazon. You have SpaceX, which is Elon. You have Virgin Galactic, which is Virgin. And these people are pumping all this money because it's a space race, because they're trying to sort of, monetize space tourism and take satellites and eventually even take people to Mars, right? People that are listening to this and saying, but Abebe, you're too superficial.
Yeah.
The whole world revolves around making money.
Yeah.
How do you, I want you to speak to those people.
Yeah.
And make them understand what you understand, or at least give them a different perspective. Okay, we hear you, racism, but we can still solve racism and make money. For example, let me give you another example. We had apartheid in South Africa.
Yeah.
We had, racial segregation in the United States. That ended, but people are still making money. So black people are still making money. White people are still making money. And the system that is capitalism has shifted and changes to incorporate more people, to have access to more resources. But the bottom line, the foundation is that people need to make money. Is that, for people that are watching this, how do you, just give them that perspective?
I agree. People need to make money. But for those who might think I'm superficial, everything I say, there is empirical evidence to back it up. I'm a scientist first and foremost. So I try to keep, whatever I'm saying grounded in actual empirical evidence. Second of all, yes, people have to make money. We have to pay bills. But what I'm talking about, the type of capitalism I'm talking about is this massive, where there is massive gap. You mentioned, Amazon, SpaceX. Look at Elon Musk, look at Jeff Bezos. Their wealth is so unprecedented. They are some of at the very top. They have become so rich, especially during the COVID time. What I'm opposing is their greedy wealth gathering at the expense of people at the very bottom. Right. There has been plenty of research in looking at the conditions of Amazon warehouse workers, Amazon delivery workers.
Labor rights, so forth and so on.
The company does not allow unionization. It will, systematically identify and fire anyone that attempts to even create a union. Yeah. And unions are critical for people's well-being, for people's to make sure that people are not exploited. So all these big companies that you are mentioning, all their wealth, all of them, and I say all of them, it's based on exploitation of people at the bottom. That's the kind of capitalism I'm opposing. As I said, we have to find the balance between making money and doing social good. And these companies that you mentioned signify the highest, the epitome of greed at the expense of, exploiting people. As I said, Amazon workers are not even allowed a bathroom break. Some of the drivers, they take bottles so they can urinate in bottles.
Yeah.
So the kind of wealth that they have accumulated comes again at the expense of people. That's the kind of wealth I'm objecting to.
You at home in the comment section, please let us know, join in this conversation. It's very important. Abeba is one of the brightest minds and vocal, strongest voices, particularly on this subject. I think it's very important, Abeba, and I want you to keep being that voice. Everybody's talking about money, and nobody's talking about what you're talking about. And I see why Time Magazine put you as one of the leading top 100 voices in AI, particularly for that reason. Because we need to think of the human aspect, the human condition, and how this technology impacts the human condition. And I think you have a lot more convincing to do. But I think that's been, not I think, I know, that's always been Africa's position in the world.
Yeah.
Africa's main value is to always show the world a human face.
Yeah.
And that's why we're important in this AI space, in the global body of knowledge. And thank you for joining us on iAfrikan.com.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, Abeba.
Thank you.
High five.